So today, we're going to do our second lecture. This is a wonderful, oh there it is. This is actually where Christa and I spent the first year in Mexico, in this area, where the Sea of Cortez meets the desert. It kind of looks like Sedona. And it's very hot, even hotter than here. So it was 114 many times during the day. But we just loved it. We just loved this area. And I wrote my Set of Planet Mercury Rising book at this location. So on my birthday, Christa took me up to this cave to kind of get my head chilled out because I was just finishing the book. So that's to share with you some of the places that we hike around. Okay. So let's go quickly over what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to give you a quick intro. I want to focus on the fact that higher consciousness is Thoth's goal for humanity. Now, you realize from the Garden of Eden, Enlil didn't want that, so those two are at odds relative to our experience on this planet. Real quickly go over some of the stuff in the beginning. We covered most of that basis stuff in the first lecture, about who the Anunnaki were and all of that. Then I'm going to talk a little bit in depth about our construct and how they designed us, which I put a little bit in the first book, but this one we're going to get a little bit deeper into it. Then I'm going to do a brief overview of the key points of the Emerald Tablets. There's 15 of them with a lot of data there. How many feel pretty comfortable with the Emerald Tablets so far? I know I've got it on audio, I've got it in my book. Okay, so I'm only going to go to some of the key points, the bullet points for the other information will be there. You're welcome to read it, but the ones that I've highlighted are the ones I'm going to focus on to make sure we get it, okay? And then I'm going to add something a little different here called light encoding the reality matrix. This is some very deep physics where how it interacts with the human body and our potential to manifest matter. You know, in Tibet and other areas of the world, there are supposedly people that can do this. Well, there's some science behind that, and there are a couple of scientists that actually had written this paper that I have, and I'll share it with anybody that's really interested. And actually looked at this from a physics standpoint and wrote a paper on it. I summarized it and showed you the mantra that I particularly developed for myself based on how sounds resonate with me, and I'll share that with you. It takes a lot of practice. Part of it is establishing a practicum so that you can get to the place where you can do that. Now, have I been able to do it yet? No, but I think I'm getting close. And I'm going to keep working at it, and Christa is as well. So she has her own, what we call light encoding the reality matrix mantra, and I'll go over that with you guys. That was not in my second book, but I realized it was so profound that I wanted to share it with you. We'll real quickly go over some alchemy, how it related to Thoth and his first mission as he went to Egypt, the first alchemist. We'll talk a little bit about virtual reality, start making you think about what kind of perception and holographic state that you truly are in. And I think by the end of this, you might be convinced that what Thoth said is true. Okay. We'll real quickly go over what's happening in the world and the forces that are arrayed against each other and where we're probably going to land here very quickly. Some of the oppositions to that new world order. Remember we talked about the rising of the new Atlantis that was always meant to be, and it looked like they chose Washington, D.C. And we'll look at some of the things that are going back and forth, and you'll probably be able to see the headlines a little differently now once you realize that. Some of the things that are happening in terms of alternative energy, a way that we could possibly live in a sustainable way on this planet without overpopulating and utilizing all the resources. I don't know if any of you have read Gerald work, Dr. Gerald. He wrote Guns, Germs, and Steel, and he also wrote a book called Collapse, where he looked at all these civilizations and what went wrong, including the Mayans and all the others, to try to analyze what generically is going wrong here. So it's interesting, there is a solution to that. And then breaking out the signal. What do we have to do to ascend out of this perception of awe that Thoth says we were born into? And they call it the illusion of Maya. It's interesting that word means illusion in that illusion. So a lot of spiritual disciplines agree with that. Okay. So why did I write this book, and why did I adopt false perspective? Well, now you realize back in the Enuma Elish, Mumu, which was Mercury, was involved in this allegory of this battle of these planets that were coming into collision in close perihelion with the sun. So he goes way back along with his father, E.A. Newton, who was Enki in that reference. So I saw him from the very early stages of our introduction to ancient history, all the way up to even through Egypt and even to now. So it's like, well, how is that possible? But, there were several reasons why I chose him instead of Enki. Secularization was the lost book of Enki and gave the whole perspective of what went down on this planet while they were here from his perspective. But I really felt that because of his mission, I wanted to take his perspective to write this book. Okay, so that's why I did that. He was a geneticist in the Sumerian camp. We did the genetic upgrade. He also played a liaison role with his brother Dumuzi, both sons of Enki, to accompany the Adaka and meet Anu on the river. Amazing story. I think that's in like chapters 3 or 4 of my book. Has everybody read that part? Remember that part? And also, as he left to come back to the earth, he was told a specific part of his mission relative to humanity. He also correlates that with his self-proclaimed mission in the Old Testament. So we have corroboration of what he was told and what he also said that he was going to do. I'll talk a little bit about, I didn't even know about the field of alchemy when I started writing this book very significantly. So as it started unfolding in our lives, it became more and more clear that this process of transmuting lead into gold, or a hairy barbarian into an ascended being, is exactly what he was trying to describe, and that was his mission. And then I'm going to show you some of the synchronicities that happened right after I wrote my first book that spawned me to probably write this second book and choose this title. So from the Enuma Elish, you realize we live on the seventh planet according to the Anunnaki, and Mercury is another name for Nimshia. So in my opinion, the reason I chose this title was he was ascending to take over this Lord of Earth command, and I hope you'll be convinced of that after this. We talked about a couple of these old documents that were very, very important to me. He shows up in the Anunnaki Realm significantly, and also in the Audra. And both of these documents are on display in museums, and you'll see that. So I think that's kind of neat. You can see it clearly. There's going to be some missing lines and things like that whenever these things are broken. And a lot of times, at least in the Oxford University, they would tell you how many lines were missing and stuff, so you knew that there was a piece missing. And maybe you could get it from another, other than an old Babylonian or an Akkadian perspective. And so a lot of times they'll give you those. And, that's why I like Stephanie Talbot's book. She did that. I think I have a table here of all of the planets in our system and the names that were ascribed to them by the English. It really helped to understand this allegorical battle. There's no alchemy image.
Is that in the book?
No.
Let's see that. There's a picture of that.
They don't like that.
Do you guys want to move this couch around so that your heads are not cocked like they are? Because it's hurting me just looking at you.
Are you okay? There's a spot over here. There's a spot over here. I am, absolutely. I mentioned this encounter on Hathor's Temple, and it's actually the Exodus 20, where the smoke was coming out, right? Moses goes up and meets God, that comes out with Hathor. Well, turns out in Hathor's Temple, they discovered that they were smelting gold. It's right there on Mount Sinai. You can go look at the journal today. Hathor, to me, is Anunnaki. And clearly, El Shaddai was another name for he of a high mountain, who was Enlil. So Enlil and Hathor, or Nana, were there at this temple when Moses had this encounter. So the idea that Lawrence Gardner got the access to information to disclose what they found in that temple, which was this white talcum-like powder underneath the stone on the floor, that was being used to compose conical bread cakes that the priests and the ritual attendants were consuming, they had to ask themselves, what are they doing? Right? Then Moses comes down and takes his golden calf and does exactly the same thing with the Israelites trying to wake them up. Well, he must have been exposed to this idea, the alchemical transformation of gold into something that not only affected the pineal gland, but also was affecting intelligence. Okay, and that's, so we use the word star-powered gold for that reason. As soon as I wrote about it, everybody in the world was asking us, well, how do we get it? What's the best source? So we started doing the research. It took us a while to find the right source, read David Hudson's patent significantly. I studied it for quite some time, and I've written a lot of patents, so that's something that I do, but probably most people wouldn't. So we started making our own, and eventually, because of our traveling arrangements and being on travel, having to get to the post office, ship this, we finally had to get some of those functions off to somebody in the United States to help us with it. But Christa still has a couple of different alchemical products that we sell, and when we get a chance, she can talk about those. I think we have a product list. We also ended up producing colloidal silver as a result of some of the other scares like Ebola and HIV and things that were going on. Chikungunya. Alchemy is interesting, and I'll talk about some of the books. And this ties back to some religious tenets, or whether it's with Buddhism or Hinduism, especially Tibetan Buddhism. One of the primary aspects of that religion is, number one, subjugate your ego. Okay, well, that's just the opposite of the way we're taught to live in the Western world. Everybody's watching, what's that? Singing competition, or American Idol. So everybody wants to be famous, and well, this is completely the opposite of what is required to have an alchemical initiation, if you will, as you'll see later in the document. And also, what does that mean, purifying your consciousness? Does that mean stop swearing and don't chew tobacco? It was different for each person. But in general, if you're doing anything that's tempering your energy body instead of enhancing it, you're probably not purifying it. So, I'll talk a little bit about that. And it's somewhat different from most people, but I'm surely not going to be putting on some dogmatic rules. You can do this and do that. I'll tell you guys at the break what we do and what we don't do. That's part of that. And the reason I chose this spot for this conference was because the significant tie into Quetzalcoatl, which was another name for fall. And I think after seeing the Guatemala stone in Zappa and realizing the signs and symbols on there, hopefully you will be convinced as I am that this entire Mayan civilization came, and the calendar and the language came from fall, just like it did in Egypt, just like it did in Mesopotamia. Mercury is a really neat liquid metal. Has anyone ever had a chance to see it up close and personal? You have. Actually, I have a original story about mercury that they used to use the cinnabar to leach out the mercury from it, and then they would stain material to make hats out of it in Europe, right? And because of that close exposure to mercury when people were wearing these hats, they used to get what's called mad hatter disease. Just because of the mercury in the cinnabar. It's an amazing liquid metal. It absorbs light, it doesn't reflect it, and it will absorb pretty much any metal that comes in contact with it. And so they used to use it for leaching out gold from the mining operation. So we found lots of mercury around places, even here in Mexico and down in South America, where mercury shows up in rivers where they're using it to process gold, and who knows what else, maybe bananas, toroids, and plasma flying devices. But it is an amazing property, and it's quite interesting that Ningshita, Mercury, Hermes chose that metal, which is a significant component in the planet Mercury, to affiliate his name with, as Mercury, the Roman god. Right? I won't spend a lot of time on these or anything, but this was something that's, I think it started about here, where I retrospectively realized something crazy was happening to me on 9/1/2013. This is only a few weeks after I'd done my national radio show with George Norrie. We were on our way up to meet a fan, and I think he shows up here later, right here. This fan had invited me up to Truckee, California, because they were having issues with mercury being exposed to the water during their mining operations, and they were being EPA and all this stuff. And so all these synchronicities around mercury kept coming up for me, and 12 of them came up day after day. So I wrote these down, and I was like, okay, am I supposed to write another book? What's going on here? And I really, in reflection, believe this was part of my initiation into the alchemical experience, at least at the next level. So I was having a lot of close feelings and the reflections and connections where whoever this Mercury being was. Right? Well, yeah, you realize it was an ancient default. And later in the document, you'll see this is exactly how it works in his initiation. Those are all in my chapter 6 of the book, right toward the end, Alchemy Past and Present. Anybody remember this old car, a Mercury Cougar? That was my very first car. I paid $630 for it. It was an olive drab, crazy car, but the idea was Cougar on the front with a pop-up headlights and a leather bucket seat that the steering wheel slide down the way as you get in the car. It's really a neat thing. That was my first car.
Cool car.
It was a cool car. I flipped it on black ice coming home from work before I worked at a grocery store when I was 16. At night, going around a very slow course, about 20 miles an hour, it's like slow motion suicide, right? All of a sudden the car started sliding sideways, went down into a ditch, flipped upside down, and there was an old tetherball pole on a piece of concrete down this ditch, went right through the hood of my car, broke through the engine. I wasn't injured. The car was so old. The body and everything on this car was what was worth of it. One of my fans actually drew this picture of Hermes Mercury forming, and we were talking about possibly this being one of the book covers that I looked at. So I thought that's good. So we talked a little bit about consciousness and stuff yesterday, or the last time, but we're going to do a little bit more with it, including some definitions and connections to your human energy body that I hope will help illuminate, or at least where I'm at. We know the Giza complex, according to Falk in his documents, he talks about building it 36,000 years ago. So he said he left Atlantis 50,000 years ago in the intro, we'll get to that. Went to the land in Alcan, built the stakes of the Giza complex 16,000 years after he'd been there, which means it was 34,000 years ago. Okay, 30, not counting 2,000 years where we are right now. So if you add it all together, it comes up to 36,000 years. And when you look at the zodiacal house table that I rewound using the actual transit times, it turns out it's exactly 36,000 to 34,000 with about 2,000 year slice in the zodiac. So that, to me, is a very strong piece of corroborating evidence that what he said is true. A lot of people still believe in the Sphinx and the Giza complex were built around 10,000 years ago. Well, I tend to do that. Also, when you read his documents, that Giza complex was not a tomb for someone. It was an ascension chamber, plus had other functions, energetic functions and things like that. And it's just a simple, superficial edifice on the top of the surface of the ground that indicated a much larger complex that we believe now fills the entire Nile Valley. This Halls, Clemente, whatever it is, it's a very large underground complex. And I'll talk about a little bit of that from the evidence we have from Dr. Jim Kirkland.
Well, I found out about the pyramids in that area was they constructed to maintain a certain atmosphere.
Could very well be.
And it was more like a nuclear reactor.
Right. Actually, if you look at the sequence of crystals that they had in there, the way they were extracting hydrogen from water and then adding a particular electrical component, it does look like it was a form of an energy generator as well.
Yeah, it does look a form of 1, 2.5.
Right.
And also, I think what happened there, that there was a huge explosion, something went wrong there.
So, the Emerald Tablets, as you'll see, they corroborate exactly what Thoth said his mission was as he was dispatched by the Dweller. We'll get to that. Raising human consciousness, which was really interesting to see that the Poseidon, Enki, our genetic creator, is telling his son to go to the land of Egypt and do this. And you see this right out of the tablets. Looking in the past, this new world order that's evolving is really the old world order in disguise. And you'll see that clearly. So this contrast of light and dark, it's been going on forever, and it's probably for the evolution of our consciousness. Also, when you look at governments and their control of chemicals and putting things on plastic, look, first of all, the idea of being on a planet where flora grows freely all over, and somehow that one over there is not, is illegal where that term means, and this one is not, that's ludicrous to me. So the idea of controlling access to things that could change consciousness is very much indicative of the kind of order that they're asking for. It's this battle between the evolution of consciousness. We want slaves, the Enelites, or we wanted you to do work and augment you, but we want something to jumpstart their evolution, but we're not stopping you from achieving the same possibilities that we're able to achieve, because we share their genetics. And this was Aiken's perspective. Okay? What else can I say about it? I think that when you really dig into the Emerald Tablets, you realize there's discussions, scientific discussions that transcend time, all time. I have never come across information that supersedes this so far, except for more understanding about how energy and matter work with our body that wasn't really laid out in these documents. That's why I created things like quantum encryption, coding. I don't know if you know about different properties of light that have been discovered recently, but we'll talk a little bit about that. So we're just now scientifically getting to a place we can understand the individuation, all this stuff he's talking about.
So I read the Emerald Tablets on the internet the other night, and there was a numerous translation. So which one would you do?
I took the one from the crystal links from Derived, and I looked at some of the other ones that were out there. It's a good point, because some of the older ones have even different higher levels of detail. So actually, I'm going to contact the people that White Brotherhood or whatever it is they're set up to with Doriel's commissioning.
Dorian.
Yeah, well, he wrote a book as well. So actually, I want to go through all of his stuff as well. But yeah, it's like an unfolding of how far, because according to him, they went about it in 1925, from where it was hidden away, did this translation, and then was supposed to put the tablets back in the Giza complex. That's what he said.
Also, without high monies to get.
Which one did you read? An older one?
Translated by us.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, see, there's
I just read the highlights.
there was an emerald tablet that showed up in Europe around the Middle Ages. Okay, but it was only a single summary tablet, whereas the tablets he's talking about here, there were a total of 13. Okay, so I saw the summary one that Isaac Newton was decoding. It was very different than what was given out to us here. I want to talk a little bit about this model for a sovereign citizen versus the need for government. Of course, that's really a popular topic right now. Put you on a dissonant list. But if you go back to Neanderthal times when people were living in caves, imagine with me for a moment that there's a threat coming up the cave. I don't care if it's a saber-toothed tiger or another group of individuals that want that cave and want you out. Okay? So suddenly you're in this fight or flight condition where the group has a decision to make. Okay? Are we all going to group together and deal with this, or are we going to take our strongest warrior and put him out there first and let him deal with it? Well, that's typically what happens in the world. We enroll a hero to deal with our issues because we don't deal with them ourselves. Okay? So the idea of facing our fears is very important as part of this alchemical transition. Okay, we can't pawn off this functional issue in our evolution of our consciousness to the hero every time. We've got to be the hero, whatever that means for your path. So I want you to keep that in mind as you realize that do you need a government to protect you? Or could people be self-organizing to, in a sovereign way, meet all the needs that they have without selling out our rights and our freedoms to an organization that is telling us, no, you can't gather rainwater on your roof in Oregon. Or you got to have a smart meter that's going to dumb you down with the electron operator to shut your electricity. You know, all the incursions into our free will state of being that is natural for us. And we all know that we shouldn't be enslaved. We can feel that. This symbol is very important to me. And I opened my big mouth on the radio at one point and said, in my particular opinion, based on what I know, I don't think there should be a cross on any building. There should be a caduceus. a symbol of life, not a symbol of death. Right? They're very similar symbols to other guys. And I think that was done intentionally by Angel. As a symbolic gesture to Yeshua himself telling us, look, higher consciousness is not going to be allowed to watch. So, it's very controversial, and I understand that, but when you understand what that symbol means, it really represents the alchemical transition out of this particular state into a higher state. And if I haven't explained the Caduceus well, when we get to a picture, I don't want to do that. Okay? I know I've done it several times over the radio, and I didn't. And some of you have been to the Pizza Complex. I know you have. Anybody else? Have you?
I hope it's still there. I didn't get it.
It's a radical kids to hear that. Yeah. So it's really a tragedy what's going on with destroying these ancient artifacts. Yeah, I hope it is still there. But the reality is they built a big fence around it. You can't walk on it. You can't have any access to it.
It'd be, if you're talking about ISIS, well, first of all, think how long it would take to tear a pyramid.
Well, it depends on whether they get access to an energy weapon or something. I just saw that Russia's got 200 nukes on their biggest sub off the coast of Syria, and the United States yesterday saw from the news and moved in, was it 20 nuclear missiles in Ukraine?
Well, it's there.
Yeah, that's Ukraine, but
it's there now. I encourage everybody to go. There's very, very few tourists.
Really? Because of what's going on there.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, yesterday I just saw also that there was a new governor just elected in Egypt as well. Now, it looks like it could be another puppet government underneath the petrodollar clan, but it's hard to say. Well, it's interesting what's going on in Egypt because this was Enki's old domain. The entire Africa and Nile Delta was the Enkiites clan area. So all the gods of Egypt, before all the incursions and the wars from the Levant up north of Kenya, that was all from the Enkiites. That's what I call them. There's neat models. Okay, so I talked about this point in the age of Leo. It starts about 36,000 and goes to about 34,000 years. This is the second rewinding around the zodiacal house using precession. And you can see the actual transit times of each of them. There's only 3 of them. And I pointed them out right here. There's 2291 years, 2290, 2129. So there were different transit times. In an equivalence house model, each one of these would be 2,160 years, not different. Okay? But if you go all the way around, you should end up with 25,920 years, which was what they called the Great Year. So in the tablets, I just want to point this out once again, that in the age of Leo, the Sphinx's body was a lion, and the face on there was none other than Shia's. That was false face on it, according to him. There's a little picture of somebody put together the functional interpretations of how the complex might be being used. There's lots of theories on this. They got very controversial when Graham Hancock went over and met Dr. Howard Zawas. I saw this on video. I was like, oh no.
You walked out of the room.
I know. It's it was so childish. It was so childish. I couldn't even believe it happened. But yeah, so the reality is that there's some serious mysteries there that have been suppressed by the Egyptian government. Yeah. Well, I don't know if I have it in here, but in my book I talked about this guy, Dr. Jim Hertog, who did this film called Chambers of the Deep that has not been released yet. And he talks about finding all this underground structures, just like Paul said, that all had Atlantean writing and took it back to the original civilization. Now, when you're reading up on tablets, the dweller sends Paul to the land of Cam. That's why he was the first alchemist. And so it corroborates exactly. He had the origin of Atlantis. So this Atlantis rising concept is very powerful. I mean, it turns out Zechariah Sitchin was the editor on the magazine of Atlantis Rising. Did you know that?
I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah. So he knew. Also, I can go back, but it was a mystery to me about who Osiris was for a very long time. So the Isis, Osiris, Horus story, this story that's told you, very important. Now we know who Isis was, that was Nin. We didn't have a lot of clarity on who Horus was, really. We knew he beat Seth in this aerial battle, but who was Osiris? Very important, one of the most important gods in Egypt. And he's claimed to be the one who's guarding the Duat portal, so if you do have an out-of-body experience like Thoth teaches you want to ascend to visit a higher dimension, that this person's going to be the one standing at the gate testing you. And so it turns out, and this is a really crazy concept, that Osiris is none other than Thoth himself in another avatar body. So Thoth is Osiris, and you'll find this out from, if you study the Magus card in the tarot. He's holding the exact same scepter and all the same functions. I'm like, wow! So that was very illuminating to me. Probably not a lot of people know that or believe that, but I personally do. And you see, and I'll show this to you in a second. So there's a Nishita's face. Whoops. And everybody's seen this face. So there was his face, and of course the snake that used to be on there was broken off. But of course, Napoleon over there was shooting artillery, I think. So they've done reconstruction and all kinds of things. But there's the face of Nishita on this lion body in front of the temple that he said he pulled. There was a single emerald tablet that showed up in Europe about the Middle 80s that was talked about with various people decoding. But it was just a summary, and I did look at that as well. It was very, very short. It was only like 2 pages. It was nothing like the and L'Oreal has a book out that's for sale on Amazon. I just looked at it. That has the complete emerald tablets in it.
So those are the original emerald tablets?
Well, this is a emerald tablet.
Okay.
That looked like it was a summary that ended up in Europe.
So what's with the chain next to it? Was it dangling on something?
Yeah, it looks like they had it. So they did hang it up or
From the gift shop.
Say, is it a keychain?
Would you spell L'Oreal?
Doreal.
Right.
That was really important. Connecting what Anu said when Muzi and Nishita would accompany this first being that Enki created, so that his father could determine, well, what did you create here as a slave? You know, send me his design constraints. Let me meet him. Is he smart? Is he? Well, I don't know. So that whole tale is really crazy if you haven't read that. Wait a minute. So, but the fact that Thoth was sent back, Muzi was held back for a star, then given the seeds of domestic crops like grains and wheat and stuff, and the essence of a ewe, meaning domesticated animals, was sent back with the Muzi at that very area in the Fertile Crescent to pull this document. So, but Thoth was sent back to deal with raising the consciousness of these beings, or at least establish a priesthood to raise the consciousness of these beings that Enki had created. So this is part of the jumpstart process, right? They wanted to be slaves for a while, but apparently Enki had plans for them to be unenslaved because he designed in us the same constructs that would allow an energetic reaction and the evolution of consciousness.
The actual tablets are gone.
Well, we'll talk about that when we get to the tablets. He talks about the history of them, where they were placed, why they were put back, and what whole thing. I'll tell you that. Yeah. Well, apparently they were made of a substance that was impermeable to destruction. The covalent bonds couldn't be broken. The weak nuclear bonds were impervious. Very mysterious if that's truly the case, how they were amazing. Only a really master alchemist would have been able to come up with something like that. And also the mystery schools, there were 12 of them along the Nile in Egypt, and Thoth was the progenitor of those schools, and that was his mission, to raise human consciousness. Now think about it. Now just go a little bit north of the Levant into where in Mesopotamia, where Enlil drew lots and ended up in that region. He was only interested in slaves, not beings that were evolving. And then just to the south here in Egypt, all of a sudden, Thoth is doing just the opposite, right? And so they were at odds about the role of the primitive worker. A couple of really neat things to tie in our current understanding of energy and our place in the solar system was a discovery of a third Van Allen belt that I included in my book. What this is discussed as these zones that you could access in your energy body. So think about the space travelers that supposedly are going out and exposing themselves in a craft to these high energy fields. with a little, a little thin wall between man and his energy. It's an interesting thing to think about in terms of whether we could truly take a craft and go out of those man belts. There's people that believe that because of the intensity of this radiation, that there's no possible way we could have gone to the moon.
Is it true that in the 50s the Americans applied nuclear weapons into the Van out there? Is that?
I had heard that. I wouldn't doubt it. I think they've done pretty much every destructive thing you can imagine.
That's what they tried to destroy that.
Yeah.
Punch a hole in it.
Yeah. Well, the reason I point that out, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, is that this correlates with some pragmatic knowledge from one of my heroes, Robert Monroe, about what he called locales 1, 2, and 3. As he was leaving his body and experiencing these barriers. Well, it turns out the third barrier is where Klaus said the dual is, this dual-dimensional entry point where you could leave the holographic prison that he specified on the sphere. Energetic prison. Okay? And in the Emerald Tablets, I was just blown away when I realized that as I studied the multidimensional theory, string theory, and then all of a sudden Paul in his tablets had said exactly the same thing. 9 parallel dimensions, 1 dimension of time. This is what string theory says. This is right out of the Emerald Tablets, and according to him, he wrote this, almost 50,000 years ago. So you're like, wow, this is ancient knowledge, and we're just now rediscovering this. I don't know why. I talk a lot about out-of-body experiences. That's probably a fringe topic for most people, but for me, that started happening very early in my life, and I never really questioned it, especially after I read Robert Monroe's book and was able to do it practically on command for many years in my life.
Was it string theory? Wasn't that Hawkins, or was that Nietzsche? I can't remember.
No, it's actually another, well, whoever initiated the theory and versus the people who actually wrote the mathematical papers to correlate multidimensional reality with string theory, those are the ones I focused on in my book, and I gave you all the data.
Right.
We don't truly understand the nature of light. We thought it was a constant, 3.08 times 10^8 meters per second squared. Well, is that through a vacuum? Is that through an optical fiber? So the density of the material which light travels through determines whether it's going to travel at this supposed constant speed. Well, there's also other properties that come out with light. For instance, if you take a photon and look at it, you get 2 polarization states. You have a spherical polarization, okay, and then there's an S and P polarization. I can't remember what P stands for right now. Anyway, because of that nature of light, if you put on polarized glasses where it's kind of got lines oriented in a certain way so that certain wavelengths don't come through, you can block out light. Well, at the same time, you can take an S and P parameterized photon and split those up if they're from the same source. And those 2 pairs can be anywhere in the universe. And if you change the polarization state of this one, it'll automatically change that one. So action at a distance all of a sudden just blows your mind relative to this knowledge. So what have they done? They've taken this knowledge and actually come up with a way where you can change an encryption key locally here, because of the polarization state of the photon was from the same source, that you can cause someone else at anywhere in the gap, anywhere in, at no distance at all. I don't care if you're on the sun, on the moon, it doesn't matter where you are. If that photon pair is there, it can automatically change. So you could actually transmit something in an encoded way from here to here, just using the polarization state of photons. And that's called quantum encryption keying. There are companies that have commercialized that already, believe it or not.
You also find out that you look at light. It changes.
Well, yeah, there's the double slit experiment where ultimately I view light as the most unmanifested form of energy that can create any matter. Or what does that mean? So if you observe it, like a double slit experiment, it can go from a particle to a wave, and so the act of observing this unmanifested energy is a way of it saying, no, you're not allowed to observe me. I'll do what I want, depending on whether you're observing me or not. And that, in and of itself, from a physics standpoint, is a mind blower. And that's been around for how long? So if you get a chance to watch a YouTube video on the double slit experiment, it's very, it'll change your perception of reality in and of itself, and for most people who've been through physics, it does that to it early on in college, okay? And this concept of time and the progression and the dimensional convergence comes up in the immortalities that I find quite fascinating as well. I think we talked about the tools versus slaves, so you can skip that. Obviously, Mercury's role was very significant in the New Militias. He participated with his father. Some of the issues, genetic chimeras bring up the idea of our fate versus our destiny. So Enki actually, in the law book of Enki, had a section where he was discussing whether I have the intelligence to genetically create these chimeras to do my labor, but should I? And if I'm going to enslave them to do this, what are the consequences of that? All right. So this pensive and reflective consciousness, exposed by him wrestling over this issue, kind of gave you some insight into his character. He did not want us to be enslaved forever, but he needed a solution, and he was he was really in a pinch to resolve this issue, this mission parameter that he'd been given. How's he going to accomplish this task? So imagine that you took a Neanderthal, jump-started it with your DNA, got them just smart enough that they could do the work, but when the work was done, then what? You turn off the control frequencies, and all of a sudden they go haywire. They're no longer being commanded, so they don't know what to do. What happens then? Well, actually, that happened to us, right? About 500 BC. So that's a really deep topic to think about. And in essence, in summary, from his standpoint, he viewed it as a genetic jumpstart. So we got the features of Neanderthal evolving millions of years in advance at that time so they could do what they did. But at the same time, he did not want to see us being slaves. So this idea of slavery, apparently, according to galactic law, is illegal. They're not supposed to be slaves. But additionally, in the documents, if you read them, it's discussed that the Burian law didn't really address certain things about marriage and these kind of issues on other extraterrestrial planets for them. So they were playing kind of lawyers and dancing around these galactic laws in terms of getting their mission done and creating slaves. If you haven't read the Atrahasis, where Enki performs his rites, takes a Sadapa, and then infuses his energy into this being, to me, that was the creation of the first Avatar. We talked about the genetic upgrade, so he could meet the labor needs. And then we'll talk about telomeres and aging and some of these biblical lifespans that go from Adam to Noah. I've been asked this on the radio before. Actually, the first show I did on George Norrie, some guy called in and wanted to know about biblical lifespans and whether this was, well, those were really months and they're not things. So we'll talk about that. Yeah, I'm going to speed up a little bit because I realize we got a lot to talk about. I believe we're all Anunnaki chimeras. The Mayan calendar, if you study it closely, in the 9 frequencies and the rows that are dispensed, had a lot to do with frequency and consciousness. So all of a sudden, there's this energy and consciousness issues come up again. Timothy Leary, if you know about Dr. Leary, it specified that there were 8 different circuits, latent circuits in humans that seem to be sensitive to either temporal or energetic triggers that affected human consciousness. And I put all those in my book. I think it's absolutely fascinating. And I'm in agreement with him now that I've seen the new lexicon and the DNA of the genetic code for this junk that we didn't know about. I think it had a lot to do with this circuitry that he's described. Is it too close in here for you guys?
No, I'm good. Don't worry about it.
We showed Enki's temple. I don't think we'll do much more with that, but this revolving Sumerian kingship. Really, I think the penultimate example of that is the Lamentation Word, where Nannar, Sin, who was Allah, and Enlil's son, was the king of that city, and he destroyed it. And what was really disturbing to me was that Anu and Enlil were working together in that account. So Anu did not have a very high opinion of these slaves that Enki had created. That didn't make me feel a little good. And we'll talk a little bit about sacred geometry. We're probably good enough on Mercury's role in new ellipses. It's funny for me because one of my synchronicities, when my kids first got their email account, one of them chose Maximus Ruler for some reason, and the other one chose Moon. Like, what? What? Really? And they were very young. They were less than 10 years old. So it's like, this is more intelligent. I thought that was very interesting. What are they trying to tell me? Person, she and Mercury's affiliated with that content. Here's those planets from the new image. Okay? So I went ahead and put the rank according to what I believe I interpreted from the new image and the numbers. You can see number 7 is Earth. So lucky 7, right? Where did that come from? Well, that's because this is the 7th planet. And that's why I named my book the 7th planet, Mercury. And then you can see here in the old Babylonian version, Marduk had associated his name with him, but it actually replaced it in the account. There are other accounts where it's called Marduk, not Marduk. Marduk was a pretty significant self-promoter as far as I'm concerned. But there are the names of our planets, and you can see this. Now look, Ani was associated with greatness. Here's Nudumu. This is Ea Enki, another name for him is Nudumu. He's associated with the planet Neptune, right? So Neptune and Poseidon were the same gods, right? So now you see why.
So why would the Druid be 12?
Well, because they were the last one in. And they counted from the outside in from apogee of their planet relative to, now imagine you're coming in the opposite direction, retrograde orbit, relative to the way our planets are going around. It gives you a mobile observatory to see everything that's going on, right? So that's why Zechariah Sitchin named his book in 1976, 12 Planet.
And is there any sense of the fact that 12 is on the bottom instead of up here?
No.
Just switching.
Yeah, I just. Also, that's interesting. King of the Moon, you see Moon, Mercury, who acid being the sun. Anshar and Kishar were names associated in the genealogy table. If you look at the one that I have, they actually, some of those prehistory, the ancient history of the brewery, they have affiliated their name with those planets. Oh, that's great. So, I'll just kind of focus on the Baltic region so we get through this. But in the Enuma Elish, I tried to summarize it 2 different ways. Blow by blow, like the tablets do, which is somewhat, I don't know, it's confusing to a lot of people. But then I reinterpreted it to try to tell the story in a more modern way so that we could understand it. But there were problems with the sun's radiation and all these interplanet issues in this celestial battle, in this allegory of this battle that they described of billiard balls colliding with each other, okay? So here, you look at what Enki unfastened his belt, removed his crown, and took away Mercury's mantle of radiance and put it on himself. Well, what does that mean? What does that mean? If you think about that, something was going on with the planet Mercury. It looks like he unmasked or shielded it somehow and was playing with the energy of these planets to affect the gravitational or magnetic pull on their planets as they came through. So this really is a crazy thing to understand from a scientific standpoint. If you had just considered this to be a myth. But when you look at it from a scientific standpoint, there's things like that we can do today. Think about using a nuclear missile to blow up an asteroid that could be coming in and striking Earth, right? On sudden impact. Okay, so the relationship between Enki and his son and Shiva in this account turns out to be very important for me. It continues. I think we spent a little time talking about tools versus slaves. Clearly, they decided to use slaves, and here's some of the reasons why I think they chose them. They already demonstrated they're going to use these in Gigi, at least for a SAR. They had 3,600 years to get tools. Why didn't they do it then? Right? Was it a logistics problem. It's not really clear why. It's clearly very highly technical and capable. Of course, you gotta have factories to support those. Biological beings self-replicate. Then you've got the problem of them overpopulating and possibly rising up against you. So all these design constraints, Enki must have had in his head that he designed this. How do you keep the revolt happening from the Chichen just like they did before? How do you keep them happy? You placate them with big houses, lots of food, make their life easy. You know, how do you keep the slaves happy? And biology still outperforms machines in many cases. For instance, think about the rover that we sent to Mars. And it's very susceptible to the radiation from the sun. The solar panel is going to be oriented right so we can charge the batteries. What if one of the batteries fails? All these issues that come up with trying to manage a machine versus a being that can be commanded either telepathically or Motorola radio and say, hey, look at this rock gravity, get a sample of this. Biology still outperforms machines. Go watch a robotic attempt at playing soccer or these robot wars where they're trying to fight, right? They're still not as fluid and as capable of biology. They're getting there. That's not there yet.
Any estimate on when the slaves became sentient? Were they sentient the whole time?
Well, this brings up the question of, were the slaves able to be communicated with language? Was it through a frequency where they were all commanded at the same time and they were sensitive to this, and their reticular activating system and their interface to the electromagnetic spectrum? Some of this detail is missing. And that's why I spent some time on this, our primitive worker design, to kind of go from, well, what do we have that we know, and work backwards. How could they have enslaved us or communicated with us, and what happens if that constraint goes away? Right? When someone's in a slave rebellion, right? Looks like it. So, just imagine for a minute that we were free will beings, and that we could choose our own fated steps in this order of reality. So what would our destiny be? You know, so the idea, are we destined to do exactly what we were designed to be and be slaves, or could we make our fated steps somehow interweave to a point where we achieve the destiny of maybe a hero or a higher self that was driving us from within? So these really deep questions about who we are, where we came from, and where we're going is very important to people. So for instance, in the Synchronicity Key written by David Wilcox, he talks about this kind of hidden hand that's interacting with you in this order of reality to suddenly cross an aha moment where you might have had that in a past life, where there's something that we all have experienced as a synchronicity that we can't really explain. Could it be a hidden hand or a force that's guiding us in our fated steps toward the destiny that we all believe, each of us having an individual one, is happening? And so a lot of people feel like that is happening in their lives. And when I had from 9/1 until 9/12, all those synchronicities happening, I was like, this is very unusual. What's going on here? Like, I'm sure all of us have experiences. And also go back to the idea of Enki designing us, knowing there are other extraterrestrial races vying for the resources off this planet, genetic war. Could he have created an environment for his avatars? He created one, that means the rest of us are too. That we're in, by definition, a constrained space to evolve, because that was his intention for us. He'd enslaved us, but he'd also set up an environment. He left the constructs for us to evolve. So under what circumstances could it have been a holographic simulator? So we'll talk about that a little bit. I know the idea of a hologram in a simulator probably is way out of the edge for you guys. Hopefully by the end of this it won't be. And we'll use our eyes to determine how enslaved we truly are. It's a telling feature of our five senses. Did anybody see that movie?
Yeah.
Did you like it? Did you like it? I actually didn't see it again now. I've written some stuff about avatars, holographics. So this whole idea of being able to take your energy and animate it in the body in this dimension, well, what about these other dimensions? But if those truly exist, it's possible.
Looks a little bit like you.
Yeah, I can't get my hair very long. There's a bead there. So, as avatars, we talk about what happened on Mount Hathor, Sun Temple, this introduction to Starfire Gold. And in 2009, 3 scientists were awarded the Nobel Prize in Medicine for discovering how these telomeres, these little end caps on your DNA, are affected by probably radiation and such that causes us to age. So if these little pen caps start doing this and start shortening like that, guess what? The cells that they produce are damaged. And that's what produces aging. But if you can stop that from happening, you've solved the aging problem. Very simple. Okay? So there are people all over, longevity experts and people that are investigating this, and lots of people we've run across paths with since we wrote about Starfire Gold. They're looking at exactly this. And they're going out, having their telomeres measured, taking this supplement or this, and seeing what is effective. So this is real science. If you want to stop your aging process, I suggest you look into it.
So, Gerald, just real quick, have you heard of a thing called blue zones?
Blue zones?
The blue zones. It's these people that live to be over 100 years old. They're in these certain zones in the world.
Oh, like the Lacobamba, places like that? Longevity Valley in Ecuador. Wow, I've heard about those. I didn't know they called them blue zones.
They call them blue zones.
You're nodding, sorry, you know.
No, there's various
Yeah.
places in the world.
Well, you know, in the Bible it says we were giving intelligence a 120-year lifespan. Well, the Emerald tablets say that too, in the design constraint by Enki. So I looked around in my first book and I said, well, how many people live beyond 120? And the oldest woman at the time that I found it lived 122 years old, something like that, and she was from France.
Yeah.
So
these are all 100 plus.
100
There's
plus?
only one place in the United States, and that's
it'd be interesting to see how many of them have seen 120 years.
Loma Linda, California.
Really?
Of all places.
That's
And
the
they have
only place in the United States.
No
And then
kidding.
there's one place in Costa Rica, there's one in Italy, and
We knew about the
There's
one.
one pretty
over 100, and they're active.
active.
I mean,
They're not
they're
just
not-
like
Mhm.
100 sitting on the porch, and
Right,
like, not really with it, but they're there.
Mhm.
And they all have properties that have, it's an inconvenience living. They all have stairs. It's not like one level living. It's nothing like that. And they're not out there jogging and running. It's,
I bet the diet is one.
Oh, they all eat, it's very similar to their diet. Not a lot of meat, if any at all.
beans and rice.
Rice.
Beans are just crucial.
Chris, what was those 2 doctors who did that China study? That did the
Oh, you're
first
talking
one?
about one of the guys from Cornell, and the
Yeah,
other
yeah.
was a surgeon. I don't remember his
Well, they
name.
discovered when they looked at the diets of these people who were living a long time, that
Yeah.
it was primarily vegetarian.
Yeah, and very little meat,
Yeah,
like maybe
yeah.
once a month.
Yeah.
There's another group in California, Himalayas, they put it down to the water they drink. It's crystalline.
So I just
It's a
want
lot
to
of
throw
water
that in
in
there.
life.
Right. So I went to the Bible and got Adam and Noah, and this is the King James version, right? All us good Baptists use that one. Anyway, actually, I spent 14 years married to someone who was Catholic too, so I saw that from the inside up. We had lots of discussion. Anyway, are these ages possibly real? Based
I
on
think
genetics.
so.
Based on genetics. Well, some people believe so and some don't. I noticed some of them were very interesting. If you read the Lost Around the where I see it, Chichen. Inside, so outside of Mexico City is Teotihuacan, where the largest pyramid, at least till this year, they found another one, was the Temple of the Sun. Okay, well, this was the headquarters for all the other southern kingdoms that were coming out. And Quetzalcoatl had a very significant pyramid there, which we're thinking we're going to do our next conference up there. But inside Mexico City, remember, it was built on a lake with these little floating platforms that they eventually turned into a city. That was 10 octaves long. Okay. Well, if you look at the name Enoch in the Lost Book of Enoch, where Lamech has this child, Noah, with his wife, and comes back after being over learning these building techniques in Babylon, comes back and finds out he's got a baby who's got blonde hair, blue eyes, and is speaking at birth, and blows his mind, right? Did you see this in the Lost Book of Enoch? Oh, read about the birth of Noah in the Lost Book of Enoch. Well, then you come to find out that Enki was involved, and it was his kid. And then Methuselah leaves and goes find Enoch to find out what he's supposed to do about this alien that's been born to his wife, right? And he tells him, and then he gives him the prophecy about Noah. And there's going to be this, and he's going to be a very seminal being, and there's going to be a flood coming, and all this stuff. It's right in the Lost Book of Enoch, okay? Amazing. So when I saw that his age, when he was taken up to be with God and never came back, right, was exactly the number of days in our calendar, I thought, well, how interesting is that? So I thought that was interesting. Methuselah lived the longest at 969 years. But that pales in comparison to what we saw from the Sumerian kings. Let's look at the first king who was given kingship in Eridu. Alulim was given 8 stars, which was 28,800 years. He ruled, not how long he lived. But what kind of telomeres did those guys have versus these biblical patriarchs? So it starts making you think about it after you see what's possible with telomeres, that maybe these ages were not a fallacy. Is that crazy or what?
It just makes me feel like I got gypped.
Well, we all got this plant at 120 years. But now we've been exposed to the idea that maybe you can go beyond that. Do you want to go beyond that in this prison simulator? And also think about this. Imagine you lived that long. How long would you wait to deal with stuff that was really important in your past? Well, I got another 900 years, and I'm going to be hedonist until I get to that point, and on my deathbed, and then I'll take care of business. Right? Well, you shorten the lifespan to only this long. Guess what? You got to move like a busy ant with no sleep to get to where you're going. Okay, so it causes you to evolve quicker as a species, right? Especially if you throw a bunch of hand grenades and trap doors in the rat maze that we're right? So, I thought this was funny too. Lamech, who was supposedly the father of Noah, okay, he was married to a Bilbanos, and we'll see that in the genealogy table. But it's quite clear that through this incursion by Enki, who went to Shuruppak, his half-sister's medical headquarters, and specifically stated in the Lost Book of Enki that he had an encounter with Bilbanos and got her pregnant. It's right there in the document. Okay? So Enki is the father of Atrahasis Noah. It's very clear. It's also in the book by Stephanie Dolly, where she talks about these different names of Noah in the very beginning of it. She clearly ties it to Atrahasis and Zia Sudra, and the same being that Gilgamesh went to meet in his epic was none other than Utnapishtim, who was Noah. So, anyway, so there's many of Noah supposedly lived 950 years. Now remember, after 600 years of being king, that's when the flood came in Genesis. A little after 10. Yeah. You guys want to take about a 15-minute break? So today, we're going to do our second lecture. This is a wonderful, there it is. This is actually where Christa and I spent the first year in Mexico, in this area, where the Sea of Cortez meets the desert. It kind of looks like Sedona. And it's very hot, even hotter than here. So it was 114 many times during the day. But we just love this area. And I wrote my Set of Planet Mercury Rising book at this location. So on my birthday, Christa took me up to stay and kind of get my head chilled out because I was just finishing the book. So that's to share with you. Some of the places we hike around. Okay. So let's go quickly over what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to give you a quick intro. I want to focus on the fact that higher consciousness is the lost goal for humanity. Now you realize from the Garden of Eden, Enlil didn't want that, so those two are at odds relative to our experience on this planet. Real quickly go over some of the stuff in the beginning. We covered most of that basis stuff in the first lecture about who the Anunnaki were and all of that. Then I'm going to talk a little bit in depth about our construct and how they designed us, which I put a little bit in the first book, but this one we're going to get a little bit deeper into it. Then I'm going to do a brief overview of the key points of the Emerald Tablets. There's 15 of them. There's a lot of data there. How many feel pretty comfortable with the Emerald Tablets so far? I know I've got my audio, I've got it in my book. Okay, so I'm only going to go to some of the key points, the bullet points for the other information will be there. You're welcome to read it, but the ones that I've highlighted are the ones I'm going to focus on to make sure we get it, okay? And then I'm going to add something a little different here called light encoding the reality matrix. This is some very deep physics for how it interacts with the human body and our potential to manifest matter. You know, in Tibet and other areas of the world, there are supposedly people that can do this. Well, there's some science behind that, and a couple of scientists that actually had written this paper that I have, and I'll share it with anybody that's really interested. And actually looked at this from a physics standpoint and wrote a paper on it. I summarized it and showed you the mantra that I particularly developed for myself based on how sounds resonate with me, and I'll share that with you. It takes a lot of practice. Part of it is establishing a practicum so that you can get to the place where you can do that. Now, have I been able to do it yet? No, but I think I'm getting close. And I'm going to keep working at it, and Christa is as well. So she has her own, what we call light encoding the reality matrix mantra, and I'll go over that with you guys. That was not in my second book, but I realized it was so profound that I wanted to share it with you. We'll real quickly go over some alchemy, how it related to the fall in his first mission as he went to Egypt, the first alchemist. We'll talk a little bit about virtual reality, start making you think about what kind of perception and holographic soul or a hairy barbarian into an ascended being is exactly what he was trying to describe, and that was his mission. And then I'm going to show you some of the synchronicities that happened right after I wrote my first book that spawned me to probably write this second book and choose this title. So from the Anunnaki Realm, you realize we live on the seventh planet according to the Anunnaki, and Mercury is another name for Nimshia. So in my opinion, the reason I chose this title was he was ascending to take over this Lord of Earth command, and I hope you'll be convinced of that after this. We talked about a couple of these old documents that were very, very important to me. He shows up in the Anunnaki Realm significantly, and also in the Atrahasis. And both of these documents are on display in museums for you to see today. So I think that's kind of neat. You can see it clearly. There's going to be some missing lines and things like that whenever these things are broken. And oftentimes, at least in the Oxford University, they would tell you how many lines were missing and stuff, so you knew that there was a piece missing. And maybe you could get it from another, other than an old Babylonian or an Akkadian perspective. And so a lot of times they'll give you those. And, that's why I like Stephanie Talbot's book. She did that. I think I have a table here of all of the planets in our system and the names that were ascribed to them by the Anunnaki Realm. It should really help to understand this allegorical pattern. There's no alchemy image.
Is that in the book?
No.
Let's see that. There's a picture of that.
They don't get that.
Do you guys want to move this couch around so that your heads are not cocked like they are? Because it's hurting me just looking at you.
Are you okay? There's a spot over here. There's a spot over here. I am, absolutely. I mentioned this encounter on Hathor's Temple, and exactly the Exodus 32:20, where the smoke was coming out, right? Moses goes up and meets God, that comes out of the tablets. Well, turns out in Hathor's Temple, they discovered that they were smelting gold. It's right there on Mount Sinai. You can go look at the video today. Hathor, to me, is Anunnaki. And clearly, El Shaddai was another name for he of a high mountain, who was Enlil. So Enlil and Hathor, or Anunnaki, were there in this temple when Moses had this encounter. So the idea that Lawrence Gardner got the access to information to disclose what they found in that temple, which was this white talcum-like powder underneath the stone on the floor, that was being used to compose conical bread cakes that the priests and the ritual attendants were consuming, you had to ask yourself, what are they doing? Right? Then Moses comes down and takes his golden calf and does exactly the same thing as the Israelites trying to wake them up. Well, he must have been exposed to this idea the alchemical transformation of gold into something that not only affected the pineal gland, but also was affecting intelligence. Okay, and that's, so we use the word star-powered gold for that reason. As soon as I wrote about it, everybody in the world was asking us, well, how do we get it? What's the best source? So we started doing the research. It took us a while to find a state that you truly are in. And I think by the end of this, you might be convinced that what Paul said is true. We'll real quickly go over sort of what's happening in the world and the forces that are arrayed against each other and where we're probably going to land here very quickly. Some of the oppositions to that new world order. Remember we talked about the rising of the new Atlantis that was always meant to be and it looked like they chose Washington, D.C. And we'll look at some of the things that are going back and forth, and you'll probably be able to see the headlines a little differently now once you realize that. Some of the things that are happening in terms of alternative energy, a way that we could possibly live in a sustainable way on this planet without overpopulating and utilizing all the resources. I don't know if any of you have read Jared Diamond's work, Dr. Jared Diamond. He wrote Guns, Germs, and Steel, and he also wrote a book called Collapse, where he looked at all these civilizations and what went wrong, including the Mayans and all the others, to try to analyze what generically is going wrong here. So it's interesting, there is a solution to that. And then breaking out the signal. What do we have to do to ascend out of this perception of awe that Thoth says we're born into? And they call it the illusion of the Maya. It's interesting that word means illusion in that religion. So a lot of spiritual disciplines agree with that. Okay. So, why did I write this book, and why did I adopt false perspective? Well, now you realize back in the Enuma Elish, Mumu, which was Mercury, was involved in this allegory of this battle of these planets that were coming into collision in close parity with the sun. So he goes way back, along with his father, Ea Nudu, who was Enki in that reference. So I saw him from the very early stages of our introduction to ancient history, all the way up to even through Egypt and even to now. So it's like, well, how is that possible? But there were several reasons why I chose him instead of Enki. Zechariah 16 was the lost book of Enki and gave the whole perspective of what went down on this planet while they were here from his perspective. But I really felt that because of his mission, I wanted to take his perspective to write this book. So that's why I did that. He was a geneticist in the Sumerian camp. We did the genetic upgrade. He also played a liaison role with his brother Tamuzi, both sons of Enki, to accompany the Adaka and meet Anu on the river. Amazing story. I think that's in my chapter 3 or 4 of my book. Has everybody read that part? Remember that part? And also, as he left to come back to the earth, he was told a specific part of his mission relative to humanity. He also correlates that with his self-proclaimed mission in the Old Testament. So we have corroboration of what he was told and what he also said that he was going to do. I'll talk a little bit about, I didn't even know about the field of alchemy when I started writing this book very significantly. So as it started unfolding in our lives, it became more and more clear that this process of transmuting led him to go to the right source, read David Hudson's patent significantly. I studied it for quite some time, and I've written a lot of patents, so that's something that I do, but probably most people wouldn't. So we started making our own, and eventually, because of our traveling arrangements and being on travel, having to get to the post office, ship this one, we finally handed some of those functions off to somebody in the United States to help us with it. But Christa still has a couple of different alchemical products that we sell, and when we get a chance, she can talk about those. I think we have a product list. We also ended up producing colloidal silver as a result of some of the other scares like Ebola and HIV and things that were going on. Chikungunya. Alchemy is interesting, and I'll talk about in some of the books. And this ties back to some religious tenets, or whether it's with Buddhism or Hinduism, especially Tibetan Buddhism. One of the primary aspects of that religion is number one, subjugate your ego. Okay, well, that's just the opposite of the way we're taught to live in the Western world. Everybody's watching, what's that? singing competition or American Idol. So everybody wants to be famous, and well, this is completely the opposite of what is required to have an alchemical initiation, if you will, as you'll see later in the document. And also, what does that mean, purifying your consciousness? Does that mean stop swearing and don't chew tobacco? It was different for each person. But in general, if you're doing anything that's tempering your energy body instead of enhancing it, you're probably not purifying it. So, I'll talk a little bit about that. It's somewhat different from most people, but I'm surely not going to be putting on some dogmatic rules. You can do this and about that. I'll tell you guys at the break what we do and what we don't do. That's part of that. And the reason I chose this spot for this conference was because the significant tie into Quetzalcoatl, which was another name for fall. And I think after seeing one all the stone in Zappa and realizing the signs and symbols on there, hopefully you will be as convinced as I am that this entire Mayan civilization came, and the calendar and the language came from fall, just like it did in Egypt, just like it did in Mesopotamia. Mercury is a really neat liquid metal. Has anyone ever had a chance to see it up close and personal? You have. Actually, I have a little story about mercury that they used to use the cinnabar to leach out the mercury from it, and then they would stain material and make hats out of it in Europe, right? And because of that close exposure to mercury, when people were wearing these hats, they used to get what's called Mad Hatter disease. That's because of the mercury in the cinnabar. It's an amazing liquid metal. It absorbs light, it doesn't reflect it, and it will absorb pretty much any metal that comes in contact with it. And so they used to use it for leaching out gold from the mining operation. So we found lots of mercury around places, even here in Mexico and down in South America, where mercury shows up in rivers where they're using it to process gold, and who knows what else, maybe manas, toroids, and plasma flying devices. But it is an amazing property, and it's quite interesting that Ningshita, Mercury, Hermes chose that metal, which is a significant component in the planet Mercury, to affiliate his name with, as Mercury, the Roman god. I won't spend a lot of time on these or anything, but this was something that's, I think it started about here, where I retrospectively realized something crazy was happening to me on 9/1/2013. This was only a few weeks after I done my national radio show with George Norrie. We were on our way up to meet a fan, and I think he shows up here later, right here. This fan had invited me to Truckee, California, because they were having issues with mercury being exposed to the water during their mining operations, and they were being EPA and all this stuff. And so all these synchronicities around mercury kept coming up for me, and 12 of them came up day after day. So I wrote these down, and I was like, okay, am I supposed to write another book? What's going on here? And I really, in reflection, believe this was part of my initiation into the alchemical experience, at least at the next level. So I was having a lot of close feelings and reflections and connections with whoever this mercury being was. Right? Well, I never realized it was Ningshita Fall. And later in the document, you'll see this is exactly how it works in his initiation. Those are all in my chapter 6 of the book, right toward the end, Alchemy Past and Present. Everybody remember this old car, a Mercury Cougar? That was my very first car. I paid $630 for it. It was an olive drab, crazy car, but the idea of this Cougar on the front with a pop-up headlights and a leather bucket seat, the steering wheel slide out of the way as you get in the car. It's really a neat thing. That was my first car.
Cool car.
It was a cool car. I flipped it on black ice coming home from work before I worked at a grocery store when I was 16. At night, going around a very slow course, about 20 miles an hour, like slow motion suicide, right? All of a sudden the car started sliding sideways, went down into a ditch, flipped upside down, and there was an old tetherball pole and a piece of concrete down this ditch, went right through the hood of my car, right through the engine. I wasn't injured. The car was so the body and everything on this car was what was worth of it. one of my fans actually drew this picture of Hermes Mercury forming. We're talking about possibly this being one of the book covers that I looked at. So I thought that's true. So we talked a little bit about consciousness and stuff yesterday, or the last time, but we're going to do a little bit more with it, even including some definitions and connections to your human energy body that I hope will help illuminate, or at least where I'm at with this. We know the Giza complex